Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Marketing Masters. Today I'm super excited to have somebody on today who's also a fellow podcast host, and it sounds like a cool podcast as well. So I actually definitely need to tune into that, but I'll get into that now in a minute. And today I have Brandi Starr, who is the COO of Tegrita. Brandy has over 20 years of experience shaking up B2B and B2B2C companies. As the CEO of Tegrita, a consultancy that unlocks the power of email. She's all about transforming processes, enhancing go-to-market strategies, and ensuring smooth customer experiences. She's also been named one of the top 50 women in Martech and blends strategic vision with operational savvy. As you can see behind her shoulder there, she has written a book, The CMO to CRO, which we'll get into a little bit as well on the podcast now. And as I mentioned before, she's also the host of the Revenue Rehab podcast, which is known for turning ideas into action, inspiring others in the marketing world. So, Brandy, really excited to have you on. Thanks for coming on.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Did I say the name of the company correct? Tegrita, right?
Yes, you
Tegrita.
got it.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm renowned for either getting the name of this podcast wrong on the podcast, or I'm getting the name of somebody's company wrong, or I'm saying somebody's name wrong. So names are just not great for me. But
Hey,
we're
well, you're
getting
starting off pretty well, so we're doing good.
we're getting there. It can only go downhill from here, believe me. So speaking of Tegrita, tell me a little bit about what you guys do.
Yeah, so at Tegrita, we are a consultancy focusing on the middle of the funnel. So we think about the top of funnels where we're trying to attract businesses to us, bottom of funnels where sales is trying to close something. Middle of funnel is how we connect the two. And there's a lot that happens in the middle of the funnel, and there's a lot of opportunity to have predictable revenue when we really focus on how we get that right. So we are looking at strategy, technology, process, creating feedback loops, really building an engine in the middle.
Interesting. Okay, and what type of companies do you guys work with?
We work primarily with B2B or B2B2C, and most of our clients are mid-market and above. So 25 million in annual revenue is usually the smallest that we work with, on up to enterprise companies, and generally where there is a bit of a decision sale. So usually sales cycle is at least 2 to 3 months, and there are multiple people involved in the buying committee. So we work across industries, but that's really the sweet spot, is where you've got customers who, their prospects and current customers are going through a real decision process in order to buy from them.
Got it. Any companies that you work with that you're able to share the name of?
Most of our clients, we've got NDAs. I know Eaton Electrical is one of the big ones that we have worked with for quite a long time. That we are able to acknowledge publicly, and we do a lot of the middle of the funnel strategy and execution for them.
Okay, let's dig into that a little bit. Tell me a bit about like the type of work that you do with Eaton. So if you're talking about mid of funnel strategy for the audience, like what would that mean in operational was?
Yeah. So if I think about their demand generation, they do a lot of events and trade shows. They also do a lot of content syndication and paid media. And so all of those initiatives are drawing both potential customers and prospective partners to Eaton Electrical. And so from there, the goal is really to influence them to choose Eaton. And they have a really complex sale because no one actually buys direct from Eaton. You're either going to buy through some sort of third party or through a partner. And so there is a need to be able to influence both the end user and those people in the industries who would actually sell and recommend Eaton. And so what we've helped them with is a lot of different campaigns in the middle, and really looking at the buyer's journey, helping them to identify what's that right message, how do they use digital body language to identify what may be happening in the client or partner's business, so that they're sending the right communication, can drive those leads, and that consistency. And so there's really a whole engine in the middle of who the audiences are, how they flow through campaigns, what are the triggers for certain types of messages. And so, yeah, there's really a lot that happens there in order to be effective. But we are seeing revenue growth year over year as we get more sophisticated.
And that's all powered by technology, I guess, right? All that mid funnel activity. So everything you mentioned there, from recognizing what partners, for example, are interested in based on digital touch points that they're having with the brand, etc., and then sending on the relevant messaging to them. That's all powered by tech, right?
Yeah, so we've got the marketing automation platform, CRM. You have their partner portal, which captures a lot of that partner interaction, and then they also use a content engagement tool that helps to promote getting customers or getting visitors to consume more content in one visit, which helps to move them down the funnel. And so all of those things are interconnected and used very heavily as both data sources of, who people are and what they're doing, as well as to help further the effectiveness of all of the efforts.
Which tech? So let's dig into the tech stack a little bit, if
Yeah,
that's
so
okay.
they are on Oracle Eloqua for their marketing automation platform, Path Factory for content engagement, Salesforce for CRM, and their partner portal is a proprietary tool.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk a little bit around the Eloqua piece. So that Eloqua piece they have on their main site, I guess, which is then recognizing all of the digital touch points with recognized contacts that they have in their database, and then that's then powering campaigns.
Yes and no. So and I'll answer a bit more generically as to just not get into too much that's proprietary with that particular client. But in general, Eloqua or any of the marketing automation platforms, because we work across all of them, are going to one, they're going to give you some of the digital body language. So they are tracking when someone's on your site, where they click emails, how they engage in other factors. It's also a database to store all of your account information. And then there's different functionality that allow you to automate different workflows. So, for example, I have another client that's in a similar space that they are looking at. There's certain product selector type tools. And so if they see someone engaging with that, that is one of the indicators that they are likely trying to quote a project. So again, it's very similar manufacturer that sells through a partner channel. And so in that scenario, it's like, okay, if someone's engaging with this, it is very specific to figuring out what fits this particular project. And so that particular engagement triggers entry into a nurture campaign that helps with other details and information that you would need for that kind of project. And so this is where we're able to take what's happening digitally and make some safe assumptions that certain behaviors are indicative of certain types of action. And so, it is a little bit of a scientific guess in how we program that. It's never going to be 100% accurate. However, there, are some consistent things that when you really understand your buyer, you recognize that when they're doing this, this likely means this other thing.
Yeah, I got it. So it's like you're using some level of intent signals based on high intent pages. So if you understand that, like if they look at a specific page, that's obviously going to be a signal to say, okay, this particular company that's been on this page is showing a high level of intent because they're interested in, example, like looking at pricing pages. How much is this particular thing going to cost? That's showing somebody that's more mid to bottom of funnel, and then there will be top of funnel that might be just reading, I don't know, top level stuff around, I don't know, general industry problems that might be on a blog post somewhere. So
Yeah.
getting
And another
deep.
really great example that people don't look at, we have another client in the technology space, and their sales cycles generally are pretty long, like upward of 12 months, 9 kind of minimum. And what often happens is because they work with such large companies, they are like custom quoting prices. And what will often happen is they'll provide that quote to the prospect or the customer, and there'll be a long lag of like no activity where there's things happening in the client's business, but they aren't really engaged. One of the things that we found was inevitably there's a point where you start to see multiple contacts from that same company hitting various pages, and not necessarily high value pages. It's just more 5, 6 people in, a 2 or 3 day time frame will all hit the website. And that generally is an indication that there was some meeting where that team discussed moving forward. And so that signal is both a trigger for certain email nurtures and a trigger to the sales team to say, this is the right time to follow up on, that proposal that you sent. And so that's another example of ways that we use the digital body language to really orchestrate that middle of funnel, because that helps to accelerate deal velocity. It helps to introduce the right information when you know that they're actually considering your solution.
Love it. Just on that, so would you be also using any technology in the form of like third-party intent data? So like you're looking at their first-party data, so the stuff that they own, people coming to their
Mhm.
website, interacting with their content. Are you using that mix now, not necessarily for Eaton, but just across your client base or how you see the world? Are you using any third-party intent?
Yeah, there are some of our clients that do use third party intent, and we're able to do it in different ways. That same technology company, they leverage Sixth Sense. And
Mhm.
with the Sixth Sense data, we use it in a couple different ways. So there are some, intent signals that trigger their teams to really target a potential buyer. And there's other signals where we look at, do we have, if they're showing intent, do we have an active opportunity for that account? And if so, there's certain things that trigger. If the intent is showing later stage, but we're in an early stage opportunity, that triggers certain sales plays. If there is no active opportunity, but they're showing early stage intent, that triggers certain marketing activities. And so, obviously, third party intent data is less reliable than your first party data. But yeah, we do see some value in that. And we generally start by working with what a client has. Like, so often, people are like, oh, we got to buy this thing or that other thing. But in most cases, they aren't yet effectively using the things they already have.
Yeah.
And so that's always our starting point, is how do we do better and be more effective with the tech that you have? And then
Mm.
once we feel like we're really using those effectively, that's when, you can make the consideration, do we want to get third party intent or data cleansing or, some other technology?
Yeah, you also need to be a bit careful with the third party intent data as well. You mentioned Sixth Sense there, which is wildly expensive. Like it's not a cheap tool, right? So and I've worked with companies myself before that have uh, they've bought into it, but they've bought into a vision rather than being able to implement what the vision is because they don't necessarily have the resource, nor do they have the budget to invest in a resource like you, Brandy, to come in and really help them pull it over the line. So they're getting all of this data, but can't do anything with it necessarily, and it's a very expensive like thing to not be able to implement. Right? If you're able to implement it, great, but like it's an
Yeah.
expensive one.
And that's one of the reasons why we start by leaning into what do they already have, because every tech, I mean, not they're not all as expensive as Six Sense, but it all adds up. And
Yeah.
the tech budgets for a lot of companies are huge, and most are not already getting that value out of it. And so that is one of our biggest values, is coming in and let's work through your strategy to help you get the most out of this technology and really be tapping into that power before, because in many cases they're like locked into contracts and things like that. So it is one of those things that you do have to also invest in the resources to be able to really use technology effectively, and not just buying the tech. Because, yeah, that is so important. We do see that so often.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like just on that, even like with marketing operations. So what you guys do is a lot of marketing operations type of tasks, right? So,
Mhm.
you talk a lot about the power of process and how that's driven by marketing operations. Tell me a little bit about this power of process.
Yeah, I am one of those odd people who are a blend of like operations and marketing. And, process isn't the sexy part, it's not the fun part, but it is so important because number one, process gives us rigor so we can get more done. Like when we can standardize how we do things and how we work together collaboratively, it allows everybody to, kind of have their marching orders and know which way to go. I use the analogy one band, one sound from the movie Drumline of thinking about a marching band and how every single person in that band knows exactly what they're supposed to do and when. And when they're out on the field, it's really magical what they can do. And so that's what process enables us to do. And so it allows us to get more done faster, to not be stepping on each other's toes or creating bottlenecks. And we believe really in operationalizing everything, including the feedback loop of how we are looking at how things are performing, how they are impacting each other, so that we can also better improve what we're doing. And so, really thinking about how do we have process around developing a cohesive strategy, getting things executed, and then being able to enable that feedback loop. And generally, in most companies, that sits in marketing ops, revenue ops, because those are the people that have that real understanding to not only manage the technology, but to drive the process as well.
And you guys, do you guys actually manage that entire process? Like, where do you guys fit in? Are you operating almost like an external marketing operations team in some instances?
Yeah. So for a lot of our clients, like we have one client that's in the healthcare field, we are their marketing operations team. Like their team really only logs into their technology for reporting. And so we've defined the process and we also execute on that. We have other clients where we work with them to develop their process and figure out, create that cohesiveness across teams, get agreement on how we're going to work, what are our SLAs in, how we're going to deliver, what templates and tools are we going to use for intake documents, reporting. And so for some clients, we are just helping them figure all of that out. And then they have the team that delivers on it. And then we will engage with them periodically to optimize and refine those processes. And then we've got everything in between, where we do a little bit of the operations work. For one client, we're kind of the fallback. If they get too busy or someone's out or whatever, we have all the knowledge to step in and do whatever. So we give them that scale. If they need to push a project forward faster, they know that they can tap our team, and we've got a ton of people that can accelerate that as well.
Got it. Got it. Okay, interesting. Tell me a little bit about the book that you wrote.
Yeah, so CMO to CRO, the revenue takeover by the next generation executive, so it's written by myself, our CTO and co-founder of the company, Mike Geller, and our CRO, Raleigh Keenan. And it came about because we all recognized through our collective experience that we saw very similar challenges across revenue teams, and that we had ideas for what it could look like to fix all those challenges. And so we decided to put it out there. And so the book is organized. The first third of the book is about the problem. And it really is summarizing what we see as the challenges that exist in revenue teams. And that because, we're in consulting, we see these challenges across multiple organizations. And then the second section of the book is about the future. And it paints the picture for revenue leaders of how amazing this could be if we fix the problems. And then the last third is our approach to it. And we always take the path of least resistance because any sort of transformative project often gets stalled, it gets tabled, you have turnover. Like it's really hard to make these sweeping transformations. And so we believe that the head of marketing, which is typically the CMO, is best positioned to effectively lead all of revenue. So bringing together marketing, sales, success, in some companies, product, all under one umbrella. And so this is our path for how the CMO can essentially take over revenue by starting with the things that they can control, starting with the technology, how they are incenting their teams, working to break down silos between the teams, and then finally getting to the point where you have one revenue leader.
And the CMO being that revenue leader, right? That's what you're referring to?
Yes. And the most common title to lead revenue is CRO, which is why we
Mhm.
chose that. There's a lot of debate on what the title should be, but it is less about the title and more about there being a single leader that is driving the direction of what's happening across revenue, and then having those functional leaders that report into the one leader that can then, know
Mm,
each of the different functions. And so, yeah, so that's why it's CMO to CRO,
mm.
in moving through taking over revenue to help organizations grow.
Yeah, yeah, fully understand. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it's about so if we're thinking about then the CMO managing or that one leader managing all of those different teams, I could definitely see the more likely person to end up in that role would be the person that's been managing the marketing side of things rather than somebody that's maybe been managing the sales side of things. That's just my personal experience. I see in the personal experience with the sales side of things normally being quite one dimensional in terms of what their focus has been, whereas marketing typically, in my experience again, has had to wear many hats generally and might already have a revenue target. Most companies give their chief marketing officer already a revenue target plus a marketing target plus get some involvement in product via product marketing, et cetera, et cetera. So I think this thing will only really work very well though if you build a very strong mid layer between for that's running all of the various elements, right? So if you have a CMO or let's call it chief growth officer or whatever you want to call it, right? That one leader. The only way to make sure that's really successful is to have very strong line of VPs, right?
Yes. Yep. And that is our exact sentiment, because marketing always has their hand in everything. Most CMOs right now have a revenue number that they've got to hit. They also have to work with customer success because they're also marketing to current customers. And so they have this visibility into the challenges and needs across go to market. And so, yeah, exactly what you said is why we believe that the head of marketing is best positioned. And then you are right. You do still need someone that's going to be the VP of marketing, VP of sales. But by having one person set the direction and goals, you don't have what happens today where different leaders have different direction, different goals, and they're almost like doing things that are counterproductive for the other team, which doesn't help anybody.
Fully agree. That's super interesting. Thanks for sharing. Brady, we're just at time now. So it's been really great speaking with you. Where can people find you?
You can find me online always. So I'm on LinkedIn, Brandy Starr. If you search my name, I usually am the first one to come up. And then my podcast, Revenue Rehab, airs every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern, and you can connect with me there at revenuerehab.live.
Super. Well, thank you so much, Brandy. It's been a great pleasure having you on. And yeah, wish you all the best. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I have enjoyed it.
Sure, no worries. Guys, this has been another episode of Marketing Masters. Tune in again next week for more great content. Thanks, Brandy.
Thank you.